There was a sort of wild moment of eureka when I began The Trouble with Dragons. Before I actually knew it was going to be called The Trouble with Dragons, it was I was looking for a book or some way of telling the story of climate change for quite young children without scaring them witless, but while also trying to sort of tell it like it is, tell it truthfully, rather than saying, you know, all we have to do is screw in one little light bulb and everything will be absolutely peachy. So I was trying to tread this middle path and struggling mightily to find a way of doing so. And it was one sunny morning, Sunday morning, and I sat up in bed, clutching a cup of coffee in my hand, and turned to my long-suffering partner of many years and said, "Michael, I've got it, it's dragons." And he's kind of used to this sort of insanity going on all the time. So he didn't really bat an eyelid when I started saying, if we have dragons, then dragons are the perfect vector for doing a picture book about climate change, because dragons are red and they snort flames and they've probably got all sorts of disgusting carbon burning habits, just like us. Well, with The Trouble with Dragons, it was the character first, so I had to get my dragon in place before I could even begin to write about them. But unusually, the title of this book came first. The Trouble with Dragons popped into my head after I'd discovered that dragons were going to be the main character. And that is unusual, because usually titles are the last thing you can think of. Titles can sometimes be very, very hard to find. So that was in place, and it just seemed very logical to go from there to say The Trouble with Dragons is, and then write a whole list of all the things, all the terrible carbon crimes that they commit. You can't go to a zoo to see what a dragon looks like. There aren't any. This may come as some surprise, but the only dragons in existence, as far as I could find, were ones that had already been drawn. So I have to confess, look at other people's dragons, and then I tried to forget I'd looked at other people's dragons and find my own. So once I'd drawn it in pencil, I then had to draw it from above, from below, and from both sides and from the back, so that I could work out exactly what it looked like from all angles. Children at events never fail to amaze me, because of course they know this stuff. They're doing this stuff, namely climate change, in school. They didn't rush out screaming, going, "Oh, we're going to die, the sky's going to fall down, we're all going to fry." They just sort of kind of looked me straight in the eye and took it on board quite sort of calmly. After all, this is their world that I am writing about. This is their world that we are in the process of trashing. So I was racked with guilt as I was reading to them, but they were not blasé. I think the overwhelming opinion I got of the children that I spoke to, and I think it was about over 1,000 children in the week of publication that we sort of went out and toured around various schools and libraries and spoke to children. And my overwhelming impression of those children was just how serious they were. Without being sort of deeply depressed, they took it on board with the requisite gravitas, and then I sincerely hope went home and demanded of their parents what their parents were going to do about it all. Yeah, it's not in words. I mean, sadly, phrases don't come to me. When I'm thinking of a book, it's the pictures that will come up first, and sometimes I sort of think, oh, how can I possibly write a book around that one particular picture, because I really want to draw it. The image in that book that I saw was the pink one with the tops of the mountains poking out of the water and the dragons clinging to the peaks. I mean, that image still absolutely scares the living daylights out of me.